Hello, this is the second part of Safe European Home, Ian Stuart Donaldson in the BNP. Now in the first part of this vid I explained the background of the punk rock scene in the 1980s and 1970s. Okay, so sorry if you were expecting like a music vid. But as I said, I fundamentally believe that Ian Stuart Donaldson, although he was part of the sort of right-wing music scene, would not have agreed with the modern BNP. And the reason why that is because I fundamentally believe that the modern BNP is anti-European, which Ian Stuart Donaldson was not. He wanted a united Europe, a Europe for Europeans, and I also think the BNP are irrational and they want to create a civil war in this country. I don't believe they really stand up for European values at all. And if you see the way that they have connections with religious zionist groups, okay, and their relationship with people like the Ku Klux Klan, okay, what's this got to do with, what has the Ku Klux Klan got to do with European traditions at all? I can't see it. I can't see it. What has that got to do with standing up for British identity? You know, I mean, British identity is a strange mix because, of course, the crime families that started or got mixed up in the slave trade. Is that supposed to be our identity? Are we all gangsters and pirates? You know, would our identity surely must be defined that we were against slavery? I mean, we tried to defend ourselves from being put under the Norman yoke because of 1066 and all of that. And that expression comes through in punk rock music, okay? Now, I mentioned that Ian Stuart Donaldson seemed to have died in suspicious circumstances, but let me just, if people aren't familiar with the story, he was out drinking with his friends coming back from a gig, and he was driving what was a small hatchback, old-fashioned car, but yet somehow during the time he was driving, he hadn't been drinking, these friends had been drinking, he somehow managed to drive the car and then the wheel suddenly come off. I don't know whether this is sort of a thing that used to happen in the past a lot, but I can't imagine how that is actually mechanically possible. But anyway, apparently that's what happened, that he died in a car crash. As I said, I think it's a tragic accident, but as I was trying to articulate, the paradox is that the people who gained most from his death, right, of course are not really the people in the right-wing music business might say, oh well, it was the communists, obviously, because that's who their beef is with, but who really fears that message of a united European Europe coming through? It's obviously that's been completely changed now, and that's not because I listen to skinhead bands music now, or you know, I listen to was aware of the existence of a band called Screwdriver who was to do with the punk rock music in the 1980s and that, but I was about 12 years old. All right, so but you know, we was just vaguely aware of these bands, The Clash and all of that, you know, at that time, late 80s, early 90s, okay? But, of course, that band's become much more famous, just like all bands become more famous when their lead singer dies, like Kurt Cobain, and all the rest of that. But his music, like the Clash's music, was politically driven. There's no question. The thing though, that the left wings, and Billy Bragg incidentally is for the English Parliament, so his views change radically, but that's for him to argue. Actually, incidentally, I like Stuart Donaldson. I quite like Billy Bragg's music, but anyway. But this whole idea for this vid really came from when I was looking at another user on YouTube's vids who was talking about how bad BNP were and how bad all people who are nationalists are, because he was part of this like anarcho-communist thing, which is so right out of. If you looked at that site and then you looked at some right-wing sites on YouTube, you've got the same sort of images. A bloke standing in like a, you know, with a mask and the gun and all the rest of it, and the images, like same image, a mirror image, okay. But he was saying how terrible that was, but they had like Che Guevara and all the rest of it. The exact same image. You could go see right wing people's blogs. You've got people with like SS memorabilia and stuff like that. It's two people holding the gun. But the paradox of it is because the centre, right, the social democratic route, which has a bit of nationalism in it, has solved most of those economic problems that the left used to talk about. All they've got is multiculturalism, the far left, and so the far right. But where should we say the unity should be in terms of like expression in music, when we're talking about anti-immigration issues? Should it be, you know, when the right-wing bands, I think, should be pro-European? I mean, if they're trying to defend European values through their music, then that would be the way to go, all right? But I mean, that's up to them. The paradox of this guy's vids from this far left wing site was that he was trying to say about white terrorism, basically, not BNP terrorism. I think BNP are a terrorist group, but they're using that issue because they just want that as a vehicle to put forward Thatcherite views, just like UKIP, just like the English Defence League. But when you boil it down, does that guy like living in his safe European home? The title of The Clash. And if you check out my vids on South Africa, the issue then becomes very, very stark, right? Because there are groups of people who are coming into this country with a neo-feudalist outlook, and surprisingly, the BNP have a neo-feudalist outlook. So perhaps if we want to have a safe European homes to live in, okay, then, and we don't want civil war, okay, in this country, then we should unite against both Islamic fascism and BNP fascism, although I don't think they are fascists. I think they're Thatcherites, and they're far more dangerous.